To the July 15th, crazy, it's July 15th, Operation and Admin. Start off, thank everybody for coming today. Looks like almost a full house, so that's great. The agenda, does anybody have anything to add to the agenda today? Councillor Howes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add something under other business, please.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Miller?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, note of appreciation, please, under other business.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Bell? Lots of appreciation. I love it. Anybody else? Okay, and I've got something myself under other business. So we'll go from there. Can I get a mover with the agenda with those additions? Councillor Oakley, Councillor Coleman, questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Councillor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Out of an abundance of caution, the trees and horticulture standard under community services, that's 7.1.2, or sorry, 7.1.8. I do want to ask a question about the main report, but wouldn't want to be seen as participating in forestry and hort. Please.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, seeing none, moving on. Delegations, petitions, presentations, we have none today. Adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. Can I get a mover? Councillor Howes, Councillor Bell. Questions on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Councillor Miller?
A note on the Veterans Park walkway, sorry. I know out in Burford, they've been talking about it for a while, and Director of Roads, Greg Demers, and I are going to the Legion meeting, I think next week, to discuss it with them. But I know the mayor talked about, well, maybe doing something in St. George, doing something in Paris next year being the 100th anniversary of the Legion in Canada. Is anybody working on that? Is there a plan in place? Or are we just doing a one-off in Burford?
Allison?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so we were trying to get direction from Burford. That direction to staff, came at the last meeting. So once we decide on what's going to go in Burford, we would make that same suggestion to the other legions. We'd like ideally for them to all be the same, or get the same sort of recognition, whether that's a walkway or banner, whatever it ends up being. So we will definitely have staff reach out to them.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, you're good with that, Councillor Miller? Okay. Any other business arising from those minutes? Okay, seeing none, moving on. Consent items to be approved. We've got, what do we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I guess. 7.1.8, I guess. Councillor Garneau?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if we could pull 7.1.2, 0.6, 0.7, and 0.8, please, from consent to be dealt with individually.
7.1, 0.2, 0.6, and 0.7?
And 0.8, please.
And 0.8. Okay, so that leaves, what do we got here? 7.1.5. What do we got? 1, 3, 4, and 5. Any questions on those? Councillor Oakley, the mover? Seconder? Councillor McAlpine? Any questions on those? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Those are carried. Councillor Garneau, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is 7.1.2, the Salt Springs Church Road Stabilization Plan. And I would like to move alternative 3 for committee's consideration, please.
Alternative 3. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Coleman.
And if I may speak to it?
Absolutely.
Yes. All right. So bringing this forward today, and this one's been a long time coming. It predates my presence around this table and was very much an issue that I heard a lot about when I knocked on doors in Salt Springs Church 3 summers ago. This has taken a really long time. I think that there have been a lot of challenges around process that I won't get into today that has challenged the county's relationships with those most directly affected. And while it seems like, well, there are only a small number of properties there, being told that you're not a priority to your municipality is really tough to hear for the residents in that space. I'm making the case today that the balanced option would be to reinvest in the road to see that it is opened. My concern is that we're reinforcing the feelings of haves and have-nots in our community. And when your road closes, I had someone describe it to me as nothing more than a private laneway, which I think, and this was not a county staff member, this was someone advocating against reinvestment to me. I think that shows a lot of disrespect to the residents. I have heard from folks who are concerned about emergency response times, who are concerned about their ability to get home from work. Some of them are first responders themselves and working in healthcare. They work odd hours. It is really difficult to be a rural, if we are truly a rural municipality, to then not continue to invest in our roads. These folks don't ask for much. All they're asking for is their road to continue to service them as it once had. And I think my ward mate's probably going to want to speak to this, but he tells me we've moved the road before, and I think we can do it again. These are some of the most fiscally responsible people we have in the county who are sensitive to tax increases. And I think that some of that messaging may have informed the staff recommendation, and I respect that. But I think that we do need to do right by these folks and see that their road is reopened for them. I think that 3 gives us that balance. Certainly it's an investment, but it isn't the investment of shoring up in option 4. I do want to thank staff for their role in this, and I don't want you to see this as a criticism of yourself and your work. My role is to advocate for the residents, so that's what I'm here to do today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not as politically correct as my board mate. I can be a little more blunt sometimes. First thing is, I'm supporting option 3. Disappointing that this is taking 4 years plus to get this back here in front of council. I know we dealt with some COVID issues and things like that, but it seems like it's been an awful long time and the residents have been frustrated. They're also frustrated, and Councilor Garneau did not mention, is that nobody has been notified about this meeting today. All those that signed in, what do they sign in for? If they sign in, you're supposed to be notified. At least I think that down the road. And I think this meeting was supposed to have been in April, this coming back. So it's been a long time coming. And Councilor Garneau is right. I did say this road has been moved before. It has not been moved in that spot. So our forefathers, which are, some of them are behind here in this wall of past wardens and reeves and whatnot, had the foresight to move this road back 75 years ago, before I was even thought of, just a few months before. So I do remember when it was freshly done. And it's been moved twice, at least twice, maybe 3 times. So our forefathers said, well, we also got these alternatives too, of Hamilton Road. Back then it was called Locks Road, McClellan Road. Why can't we have the foresight to look at doing the same? That's all I'm saying. Councilor Garneau is right. It's their access. They don't have a lot else. There's 30-some residents that are affected by this road, and at least 10 other property owners that own agricultural land down there. So I would like us to see us doing option 3, but if somebody could explain to me from staff what option 1 is all about, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody from staff want to? Thanks, Mark. When you're ready.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Coleman. Option 1 is just looking at the do nothing alternative, where if you allow the river to continue to advance into the road, the assessed damage to the properties and damage to the road itself. So it's kind of the baseline. It is hard, it's a little bit subjective, but it comes up with a value of damage to the private property and the municipal property.
Councillor Coleman?
So what you're saying, 1.9 million for do nothing, just leave it the way it is?
That's correct, and that's the damage to those private properties and the road continuing to encroach closer and closer to the house and into the fields.
And what year would you think, how long that would take before it got to that house?
I would have to look up the report. It had a distance per year, and you can calculate it out. It's in the decades, though.
Coleman?
So I will throw 1.9, or the option 1 out and stick with option 3. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Miller, then Councillor Bell.
Yeah, a question on or alternative 3, because there wasn't a lot of discussion in the report. So I can certainly support alternative 3. It is a lot of money. But for that money, how can we ensure we get the maximum life out of it before we have to move or possibly move the road again?
Through the chair, so option 3 moves the road entirely out of the erosion hazard zone, so we wouldn't expect the road would be vulnerable if we move it that far.
Okay, so another generation of councillors wouldn't be sitting around saying, we got to move the road again. This is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Another 75 years.
that sounds good. Thank you.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not quite sure I'm there with alternative 3, not because it may not be the right answer, but I cannot see the comparison of option 2, option 2B, and option 3 side by side. I'm left with the kind of thought that spending an extra $2.4 million might give benefit to a relatively few number of people. And I think we as council have to be concerned about how we spend our money and make sure that we get maximum value for that money. So if option 2 or option 2B, preferably option 2B, solves the problem with some difficulty for perhaps a few people, let's compare it to Cleaver Road Bridge. I mean, we had the same issue. You know, how many people does repairing Cleaver Road Bridge benefit? And I think I cannot support either option 2B or 3 until I see a better comparison of the benefits to the community for that. And maybe, Mark, you can tell us right here and now, but I would actually move to defer this until we get a better, more complete evaluation of the 2 alternatives that appear to be the ones that we would go for.
Mark, anything?
Sure, I would only add that the main benefit, the driver for this decision is the money. So the benefit is that we don't spend that money from the tax base.
Councillor Chambers and Councillor McAlpine.
Just that, to say that I'll support alternative 3. And I just want to make a comment on a comment that Councillor Bell made, and that's with regard to only spending money if it, I'm paraphrasing, if it helps a lot of people. In other words, if there's only a few people, don't spend the money. That puts the rural people in this county at a disadvantage for everything that we do, because in the rural areas, there aren't a lot of people. There are a lot of roads in the rural areas that need to be kept up. So I understand that if there's only a few people going to benefit by this, theoretically, we have to stop thinking that way if we want the rural areas of the county to keep up with the infrastructure that is required to service the rural areas, even though there aren't a lot of people comparatively in the rural areas.
Thank you for that. Councillor McAlpine, Councillor Garneau, Councillor Bell.
Okay. Kind of along the lines of Councillor Chambers' comments. The other piece of that is when we close down these roads, that limits when we have problems with other roads. So I'm always looking for backups. The other piece of the puzzle too is, I'm thinking for people that like bicycling and stuff like that, if that's a road that people like to bicycle down and use it for recreation purposes, just a nice drive on a Sunday afternoon kind of thing. So I'm in favor of option 3. Because also, I am concerned that I see in Hamilton, for instance, how the rural roads are so deteriorating so fast. And so it's so important for us to upkeep these roads, so.
Councillor Garneau, Councillor Bell, Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think to the point about, are we really saving money here? The other piece that is perhaps not conveyed in this report is the increased wear and tear on the additional rural roads that weren't built to withstand that. With that in mind, we don't always have shoulders out in the countryside, and agricultural equipment is getting larger. I think the risk of people trying to pass a slow-moving piece of ag equipment that's only supposed to be going 40 kilometers an hour increases the risk of accidents. Likewise, when it comes to the equipment, if you have to move all the way around the concession at 40 instead of 80, it's going to take you that much longer to do it. We really can't be looking to the rural communities to subsidize the urban, because if we do, we have to start asking ourselves some bigger questions as a municipality about who we are and where we want to go. Councillor McAlpine is on point. There's a lovely church that's been there for 200 years, which is in many ways a piece of public space, although not publicly owned, for folks to gather. The cemetery is still actively used, and quite honestly, while there may be few residents and farmers out there, we do all need to eat, and we ought not be making their lives any more difficult than they already are.
Councillor Bell, Councillor Oakley.
Well, thanks to my colleagues for making me feel bad about this. I'm not trying to put anybody down, I'm not trying to minimise the spend, but we have an obligation, a fiscal duty as a council to make sure we spend our county funds appropriately. So I'm not asking for the lowest cost solution necessarily. I'm asking for a solution that fits the function that it has to fit. And my understanding is that option 2B or option 2 provides the functional answer to this problem. And what we're doing is, if we go to option 3, is spending more money than we need to spend to deliver the function that we are asked to deliver. So I cannot support option 3.
Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have one comment and 2 questions. I'll start with the comment. A lot of this discussion is kind of reminding me of, I don't know if everyone else saw, but this past weekend, there's a Northern Ontario township that's shutting down all municipal services and disincorporating Faulkner Strickland due to sort of concerns that Councillor Chambers highlighted here with rural communities having a disproportionate amount of infrastructure and compared to their population. So I think that's sort of poignant and relevant here as we're having this conversation. My first question would be sort of along the lines of what Councillor Bell is asking here. What functionally here is the difference between alternative 2 and 3? Is it largely that alternative 3 will continue through access on this road, while alternative 2 just is an access to the properties?
Through the chair, that's correct. So option 2 and 2B both close a segment of Salt Springs Church Road and provide access from either end. Option 3 actually moves the road away from the river and reconnects it, so there's still through traffic allowed.
Okay, and if I may follow up on that question, and is there sort of do we have an estimate on what the impact would be primarily to emergency services in having no through access versus the access way to either end for the individual properties? Do we have a meaningful reduction in emergency service access?
Through this project and through the chair, through this project, we've consulted with Cindy Stevenson's group and have determined that the impact is minimal, negligible. Okay.
And through you, Mr. Chair, my second question, it would be in regards to the process, as kind of Councillor Coleman highlighted here, how come a report like this, which seems somewhat substantive, is coming forward as a consent item to be approved, as opposed to a full staff report, just out of curiosity?
Through the chair, I'm sorry, I actually don't know how it falls on the agenda, so maybe someone else can answer that.
Heather?
I would agree. I think this is just an oversight and it should have been a full staff report.
Thank you very much.
Counselor, any other first time? Counselor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back to EMS, this has been a problem and will continue to be a problem. I know staff has got it in the report there that this road has never been used, or hasn't been used for emergency. It has been. I spent almost 25 years on the fire department, and I know when 18 is down at the intersection of number 6 School Road, that road is used. Know it for a fact. Been used more than once. There is no, so you take 13,000 vehicles off 18, where are you going to put them? Because it needs to be, you need to have an access. It's no different than what we did on 54 Highway. We have to have accesses off those main roads to get people around them, because they're main thoroughfares. I know it's money, and I know what Councilor Bell's saying too. But 2.6 right now was probably, would mean the same to what it was to the municipal township of Onondaga back in the late 40s. It's not the same. You're comparing apples to apples. Because what seems like a lot now would probably seem like a lot back then. But they did it and they fixed it. And that's what I'd like to see done now. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this? Okay. So what we have now is we have a mover and a seconder looking for option 3, which is, option 3 is to realign Salt Springs Road around the erosion hazard between Salt Springs and 124 Salt Spring Church Road. And the costs are included there with the land purchases, and it's 2.6. Everybody understands that? Okay. Mr. Clerk?
All those in favor of option 3, if you could, we'll do a standing vote. If you could please stand. You may sit. All those in opposed to option 3, if you could please stand. You may sit. The motion passes.
Okay, so we've done 1, 3, 4. Councilor Garneau, 7.1.6.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to trust that this one was also an oversight, that it found its way onto the consent agenda. I would like to ask one question and then make a comment, if I may.
Absolutely.
So I understand from some landowners in Canesville that I've spoken to that there have been questions about specifically, in addition to the sewer and water, the gas and the hydro that were posed to staff through some of the consultations. I may have missed it in the report, but wondering if those utilities are also, are they where they need to be to support the proposed level of development, or is there further upgrades that would be required, please?
Through the chair, it's my understanding that following the master servicing plan, the next step, it is going through detailed design this year for the next year. And I know there is a proposed stormwater management pond kind of in the southeast area of Canesville, and it's going through the details. Once it's done, they will proceed to construction for the phase 1, which is along Colburn Street and Shaver Drive. And then the remaining phases will depend on development.
But do we have the gas and the hydro in place to support the proposed advanced manufacturing?
Through the chair to you, Councilor Garneau, it might not be in the report, but I can confirm staff are kind of meeting with those utilities on an ongoing basis The hard part is, we don't exactly know what we're gonna get, and it could mean, you know, substantial oversizing or what have you. But those conversations are having, and the idea, we're all kind of working on this together.
Councilor Garneau?
Thank you, and a comment, if I may then.
Yep.
I have some concern about pushing too hard on some of the directions that we're headed here, and I'm mindful that this is just the preliminary direction of staff, but the one thing that stood out to me in the report is that the county's goal is greater job density, but the market is currently pushing warehousing and logistics, which is not a particularly dense use. And in speaking to the landowners, they're concerned that if we continue to push in this direction, that they're going to be restricted from how they can develop, and that we perhaps won't be any further ahead than we are right now. And I think back to last fall when we had the advocates from the dance studio come to see us, and the property owner's agent in that situation explained that his facility there in Canesville had been built for a particular purpose, and since then the market had adjusted and he wasn't able to secure tenants. And broadly speaking, we're in a situation of economic and business contraction. So I think that we want to make sure we're being as permissive as we can be with our zoning rather than restrictive, because I'm concerned that given the broader circumstances that we're operating in, that we should be more facilitative rather than aspirational. So just a comment to take under advisement. Thank you.
Allison?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. You're absolutely right. This is a very strategic direction that council has the decision to make. There's no doubt that higher order implement would take longer. I think the concern is this is the last chance that the county has to have a prestige employment area. So absolutely, it could be filled up with logistics and warehousing very fast. There is demand for that. It would take longer to get manufacturing. It's whether we want to wait to get that higher order employment for the longer term benefit. And I'll sort of maybe use the example, it's not completely apples to apples, but when that sort of ripple effect from the GTA reached Halton area, Milton and Oakville took a very different stance. Oakville said, we want higher order employment, we're going to wait. Milton filled up right away with logistics along the 401. Oakville did fill out, but it took longer. But they got higher order, denser employment. It really comes down to, you know, what we want as a long-term plan as a county. So I completely understand it, and it is correct that it would take longer to get higher order employment. But like I said, this is a long-term strategy, and once the land is gone, it's gone. So we sort of have to decide on which direction we want to go.
Councilor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, most likely the CIO. With respect to servicing in Canesville, my understanding is that there's already servicing agreements that are in place that were made as part of the most recent boundary adjustment with the city. So I'm just wondering if we have a timeline on when they'll be able to complete those agreed upon services, as that would have an impact on how we move forward with this.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the agreement to service Canesville was part of the previous boundary adjustment. So we're working on the detailed servicing agreement, but in principle, that was already agreed upon through the boundary adjustment. Right now, staff is working on detailed design, and we would hope that actual construction of the servicing would begin next year and be done in 2027.
Councilor Oakley?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a comment on the report as well. I would like to reaffirm sort of my support here of staff and the county's strategic direction on this. You know, I think as our CAO highlighted, this is sort of a long-term plan to fill out a economic area that we're currently not fulfilling. And I think it would be premature to make drastic changes to that strategy based on sort of a present-day economic situation, based on, an administration south of us that only has 3 years before there's a forced change as per their own constitution there. So I think it would be premature to make a strategic pivot at this point.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Zach and Michelle. The engagement strategy that we had, we used Engage brand. How far did we share that Engage brand was open for commentary? I've had a request from an individual in that area who felt that she never heard about it and that other people that she knew never heard about it, and that when it comes to your one-to-one conversations, which followed the Engage brand approach, she was interested to know which interested Cairnsville community members were approached. She wasn't, and her group wasn't.
Through the chair to Councillor Bell, so we did post it on Engage Brant. I understand that it's pushed to whoever subscribes. We also did a mail out to everybody in Cairnsville and within about 120 meters of Cairnsville. So direct mail, kind of like a 2-page flyer about the project, directing them to Engage Brant and to register for the one-on-ones. So through that, I'm not sure. So we did have a few people step forward for the one-on-one conversations. We talked to the business owners that own the big parcel in the north and the south as well, because we had those contacts.
Okay, I'll pass that message back. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Garneau?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do really want to stress that I think we need to be mindful of what our business community is saying to us in Cairnsville. These aren't faithless out-of-town owners necessarily as far as the lands, and they're telling us that if we pursue this, they're not confident they have what they need to return on their investment. And I do think we need to be mindful of that. I think we've had a lot of residential growth, and certainly that is the provincial mandate. But we also heard last week at Planning Council about a business owner in the north end coming into conflict with residential development and where that's going to head. There are a lot of barriers to business. I don't think we need to be making more. We also talk at times, Councillor Chambers has acknowledged our balance in our assessment, and there are a lot of people waiting in Cairnsville who have been told to wait and asked to keep waiting, and they're ready to get started, but they're ready to get started in a particular direction that the market is driving them. So in order to return on, get the industrial assessment, which pays out at a higher tax rate that will give us more resources to invest in things like roads, we can't be holding folks up. And I appreciate the optimism about the timeline with the city, but I think that a lot of the dialogue that's going on at a political level is going to be a challenge as we move forward here. So I'm prepared to support the staff recommendation, but I'm apprehensive about how this is going to come forward, and I think we really need to plug into our business community because they're waving the flag here. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman?
Mr. Chair, and I'm supporting the staff recommendation on this. Echoing what Councillor Garneau was saying, we need this commercial industrial assessment in this municipality to keep things going. We're at a stalemate right now. We're slipping. Councillor Chambers has mentioned it more than once. And I'm really hoping that the CEO is right on her estimate that we can be starting on construction on this next year. This needs to be done. It's been a long time coming. And like I said, COVID held it up to a bit, getting things going, but boundary negotiations happening a big number of years ago now, and we need to get moving on this sooner than later.
Councillor McAlpine?
So, yeah, I support the staff recommendation as well. Yeah, moving into the direction for higher employment, this is the one area, my understanding, that we have that can or support this in the foreseeable future. I think that at this point we already have enough logistics and warehousing that's been allocated to this area in Paris, and so that's why I support this.
No other questions? Okay, we have we need a mover and a seconder for this. Counselor Bell, Counselor Coleman, no other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Mayor Bailey has joined us on Zoom. Welcome. 7.1.7, Counselor Garneau.
Thank you. Very nice guy, very insightful guy. Thank you very much. Breath of fresh air, that's all you know. There you go. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm coming.
can you mute?
I can mute.
I think he's in the building.
I think I can mute. Oh, God. Yes, I can mute.
Perfect. Counselor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Just a couple quick questions here. There's a fairly noticeable difference between the increases in our comparator municipalities. So what I wanted to ask was, is there much option in this market? I know a lot of the small insurance firms have been bought up by the bigger companies like Intact. And for those that saw in our neighbors a lesser increase, did they go out to market or did they renew with their current brokers? Thank you.
Who's best to comment on that? Your answer is forthcoming.
Through the chair. So the increases are actually not a lot. The market's just starting to soften, and previously, one of the municipalities had gone to market a year before, and only one, or 2 years before, only one insurer came to the table. So they're the market now that is starting to soften, we should be hopefully, in that trend, starting to see a difference.
Counselor Garneau, you're good with that? Okay. Any other questions on that one? Guess we got to get a mover and a seconder for this one as well, please. Counselor Coleman, Counselor Kyle. No further questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 7.1.8, can I get a mover and a seconder? Counselor Bell, Counselor Oakley. Over to you, Counselor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In reading the report, I understand that this is in many ways a regulated consolidation of things we are already doing. There's a note in the report that indicates that no service levels are being increased. There isn't a comparator note that says that service levels are not being decreased. So I just wanted to ask whether that was the case. I made it through it all, but I did not know what to reference necessarily in each case to do that evaluation myself. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome.
Good morning, and through the chair. First, I'd just like to introduce Ogie Korik. He's part of the asset management team, and it's his first journey to committee. And he's a part of the team working with me for all the asset management things. He did all the data entry for the asset management plan and other things. So just so you're aware who he is. And then through the chair, to answer your question, there is no decreased level in service. We went through and talked to every department and tried to collect as much data as we could initially to get this through to say, yes, we can check that box, that this is what we are currently doing on everything that we could touch. We realize that there's more work to be done towards our next asset management plan update in 3 years. And it's the starting point, and we will continue to work with the departments and go through and finalize some things. I know there's somewhere it just said as needed. We're going to talk to the department and try to get a better handle on what are those actual timelines and fill everything out the best we can so that we can have more data in our actual database and generate the information necessary for budgeting and what the costs are for replacement and everything else.
Councillor Hoy, good with that? Okay. Councillor Miller, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just something that caught my eye in reading the report, which, thank you very much, I thought it was pretty good, detailed. Just on page 85 of our package, I don't know what page of the report is, but you talk about innovation. It says the county is committed to research and review of new technologies for usage by the county. Trial projects and technologies are to be reviewed on a project-specific basis and reported to council before and after trial. My question is, given the cost pressures, and there's been some advances in technology, when you look at AI and whatnot, but I don't recall seeing anything come before us as far as trying new stuff. So is there any projects, Mark, that you're aware of that we're looking at maybe new technologies? Or procedures or processes?
Through the chair, I believe St. George sewage treatment plant is sort of a newer technology, nothing that we currently have, and we did look at things that were out there to make the best effort to allow for the largest flow through that plant. So there's things like that that are, and it's just, again, like you said, as things come forward and we look at stuff and do things and check things and verify, some of the things like you hear about, and it may not come to fruition right away. It may take some time because someone else is testing it out, but we're always trying to look at it. And some things are small enough that we may tweak stuff that it's not necessarily a full council update type of a thing. It's just a staff level, yes, this is a better way to do it, so we're gonna go forward with this way. I think just major purchases of different things would come forward, and Mark Maxwell did bring that report ahead when to pre-purchase that equipment for St. George. So, does that kind of answer your question?
Well, you give me one example, so I thank you for that. I want to know that we are looking at different things and seeing what other municipalities do and making and I know by nature we have to be conservative, because if you put a pipe in the ground that's supposed to be there for 75 years and you use the new material that pukes after 20 years, you're in big trouble. But having said that, like I said, as I said earlier, we got a lot of cost pressures, as you know. So any new things you're looking at, I'd certainly be interested in knowing. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Mark. How are levels of service determined? Who sets them?
Through the chair, the municipality, like we as council, you get to determine what the levels of service are. So as staff, we propose the current levels of service, the things that we're doing now. Council does have the opportunity to set the level of service. It's not dictated by the province. They do have some measures that need to be done as noted, but they don't actually say what the level of service is that any municipality has to meet. That is decided on by the municipality to meet the requirements of what they need to provide to the residents, and also what the residents are willing to essentially pay for in some respects, right? So.
Through the chair, that's the question. That's the answer I hoped you were going to give, Mark. That it's not provincially determined. So the decision is actually in this body. If we want to increase level of service or decrease level of service, we're the group that has that decision-making power.
You are correct. So through the chair, yes. And the intent would be if there was any staff level change in service, that it will be proposed through the long-term financial plan. So there would be some financial information behind that decision and what the cost would be to change. And then again, if council asked for a change in service, I think staff would take that back and then go through the same process to provide you what the true cost would be to change that level of service, whether it would be to go up or down, whatever council's decision would be.
Yeah, what comes to mind is a recent change in Oxford, and maybe they've changed back since, but they went to 6-day cycle for garbage collection, which I guess is a level of service change. And if reports are to be believed, that saved them $1 million. Now, I'm not sure I believe that, but that's what the report said. But that would be a kind of example I would hope that we would get as we approach budget time, that there are examples given to us of if we change the level of service up or down, these are the impacts. Because in my nearly 7 years here, and I think I've said this before, I've never seen a level of service go down. And when financial pressures come to bear, and we just approved today another $2.6 million of expenditures, we need to recognize that there may be a call for offsets. So this is a request to staff that when we come to budget time, and I'm not quite sure whether the new budget process permits it, but I would appreciate if we could see some examples of changes to the level of service which would have an impact to reduce the required budget. And I'm looking to Alison for a nod. She's nodding. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and let me know if this goes too far off topic, but sort of being along the same bush Councillor Bell mentioned there. I think in terms of budget direction, how this impacts, I think the way we currently do our budget process with the decision packages, I think it's very divorced from the larger sort of service level very divorced from the larger picture. It's very, I would say, overly granular. It would be nice to see in the future, and I know other municipalities do this, for things to be determined at the budget as per more of a larger picture service level objective, and everything put in that context of our strategic plan and our service levels, rather than sort of the granular, this item is 60 grand. Which I don't think is particularly meaningful or easy for, in particular, the public to understand, just while we're on this topic.
Alison?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the comment. And I agree. There has been some discussion about how we can present the budget differently, present it. Personally, one of the recommendations I'd like to come forward with is to work on sort of performance-based budgeting. So we're sort of presenting business cases. So we're connecting all the dots and it's seen as a whole. That being said, it's not going to happen this year. There's already a lot of changes happening with strong mayor powers and whatnot that, didn't think it was prudent to make additional changes that might be confusing to the public. But it's definitely something that I agree. I think we can do a better job on moving forward.
Back to you, Councillor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to pick up on Councillor Bell's point because I do think we need to have conversations about service levels more generally. I just want to caution that as we do that, we make sure that we don't accidentally reinforce haves and have-nots between urban and rural, because to build on the garbage analogy, one of the suggestions for cost savings was alternate weeks in rural areas. Whereas we would continue weekly in urban, and something like that sends a very strong message to the community. So while I would encourage county staff to start identifying where we might be able to achieve some savings, to just be mindful about what message that might send to particular stakeholders in our community by choosing particular options. Thank you.
Okay. No other questions on that one? Okay. All those in favor? Oh, yes, sorry, Councillor Garneau, you're going to back up for the...
Just for forestry and Hort, I wouldn't want to be seen as not supporting the rest of it.
Okay. But. So that was all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. 7.2, consent items to be received, Prior Prevention Act, Fire Prevention. Councillor Miller, Councillor Howes. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Staff reports, 8.1, RPT 0188-25, Highland Estates Solar Streetlights Update. Greg, I'm not sure if you want to speak to it or just answer questions. You want to speak to it? Answer questions. Any questions? Councillor Miller. Thank you, Councillor Miller. Now we can speak to it.
Well, not a question, just a comment. There's been a lot of complaints, obviously, over the years since these solar lights went in during the winter season when the sun is not in the sky too long and they're covered with snow. Sometimes it's just completely dark. So what I'd like to see, and maybe I can make an amendment to this, because there's option 3 recommended, continue with current configuration, but I would like to suggest that we put option 1, which, and I'm glad Greg put it in there because it does give a price to it, but I would like to see option 1 go to budget as a decision package. Given the amount of taxes these people pay, between $8,000 and $9,000 a year, I think they deserve good street lighting like everybody else has in the more urban areas.
Sorry, can I get a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Coleman? Councillor House, thank you. Greg, any response?
Through the chair, we can do that. I think we tried to look at every option, knowing that we're going into this budget season, and I've heard council loud and clear to look for savings. So that's what we tried to do, fully understanding that this was new technology. And speaking with Sean Yacoub from BME, Brant, we were forward thinkers here, and this was probably one of the largest solar lighting installations in a subdivision that had taken place. So there was a learning curve for us as staff. So we learned a few things last year. We had to go out and get tools. Solar, I've learned because we have lots of solar options here that we're using within roads, whether they're the digital signs, some other street lights on corners. They all act differently. So we learned with these, they do require a little bit of extra care in low light conditions. The snow doesn't slide off the panels like we do with our other setups. So that's why staff came back. We're kind of asking for another year, now that we know a bit more, to go forward with a little bit more proactive maintenance. We do have staff. I've been in this subdivision dozens of times myself and seen that at most times it was operating, but I can stand here and look everyone in the face, and I do know that there was an extended period during the winter time when we were without light for 15 days. It's solar, it needs light. And then as we all know, we had a lot of snow this year and it accumulated on the solar panels. So that's one of the issues that we'd like to try to tackle this year. But we can definitely put it in a decision package. But I would still, we're going to go into the season. We already have a plan as to how we're going to manage it. We have the tools to clean off the solar panels. Once we got the tools last year, went in and cleaned it up, it solved the problem quite quickly. And then I've also asked Sean if he's my hotline, hey, we need to adjust these lights a little bit so that, and in adjusting the lights so everyone understands, at the peak times just at dusk, the lights will be the brightest. And then typically when everyone's at home between midnight and 4 and 5 a.m., they'll just dim a little bit to conserve the battery power. And then at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, they can be adjusted on their own. They'll be set up so that they power up. So anyone leaving their house, the lights will be bright again. And anyone that's taken the time to drive through the subdivision, these lights are very nice. They were installed quickly, not intrusive to people's lawns. I agree, it's a very nice area. There was very little destruction done to the area. So we were just looking at all these options, and it was a big cost savings at the time to install them. Sorry, that's a bit of a long answer, but I just wanted council and the residents to know that we're trying to save money, we're trying to look for green issues, and we're trying to learn new technology as it's coming to the market.
Okay, Councillor Miller?
Through to Greg, I mean, the saving money part, I mean, it warms the cockles of my heart to hear staff say that. It does. But this has been an issue for a while. And Mr. Chair, why I'd like to maybe see it go to maybe a budget decision simply is because that gives us another 6 or 7 months for staff to keep monitoring it and also maybe to nail down the costs. And at the same time, we can reach out to residents and just let them know that this is a possibility and ask for their feedback as well. So I'm just looking for another 6 or 7 months on this issue. So that's why I would suggest putting it in a decision package.
So you're good with that? So Councillor Miller, I just want to confirm, did you want to, you're putting option 1 as a motion?
No, I'm putting option 3, as per the staff report, we'll go with option 3.
Okay.
But and I don't know if you need an amendment to ask that option 1 be included as a decision package for the 2026 budget. I don't know, or is that good with staff direction? You tell me.
I would suggest that staff direction on that part of it. So we've got a mover for option 3. Who was seconding? Councillor Coleman. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.2, RPT 0229-25, St. George Pumper Apparatus. Get a mover. Councillor Howes, Councillor Kyle. Questions? The chief's sitting right there. You're going to let him off? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Section 9, communication reports and minutes. Brant Heritage, can I get a mover, please? Councillor Howes, Councillor McAlpine. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 10, communications, I see none. Other business, so we're going to start with Councillor Howes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to, I guess, maybe Alicia or planning staff anyway. In meetings earlier this month, council planning meetings, council meetings, we've a couple times heard references to there being 7,700 dwellings approved, I believe the word approved was used, in the planning pipeline countywide. And I've had some conversations with councilors, I've had some conversations with residents where I believe it would be helpful if we could see a list of which projects are included in that 7,700 and which ones are not. Because topics come up, like at a recent meeting, there was a development of 71 dwellings, and it wasn't clear to some of us whether that 71 is included in the 7,700 or on top of the 7,700. So I'm wondering if planning staff could put together a list that would tell us what all is included. Are they approved, or are some of them in appeal? We're never going to be able to predict when those things happen because market conditions impact that. But it would be good for us also to have a geographic visibility on, is it 4,000 in Paris and 3,000 in St. George and 700 in Burford? Like, where are they all located? I think it would be beneficial if we understood this better, and if we were able to speak to residents from a more educated place on this topic. So I'm just wondering if that request could go to planning staff, and I wanted to give them as much notice as possible. I didn't want to wait till the next council meeting to bring it up. I'm not sure how fast they can turn that around. But hopefully we can get that information soon.
So, sorry, through the chair to Councillor Howes, a couple things in that. So that figure, first of all, that figure of 7,700, that was the figure which, based on our municipal comprehensive review, was the number of units which the county required to meet its minimum, the province sends out minimum growth target, so to meet those. So that was done, I believe, back in 2019, 2020, so not the most up to date, but we can kind of go with that. So what the province has set out is we should be around 250 a year. So based on what we currently have, and I believe what you guys have heard is in the pipeline. So what that means is either they're under review, so we've received an application, but council might not have made a decision, or council's made a decision, they've appealed to the OLT. So Corden, TCA would be big ones, which are under review. We have about 2,500 units. Draft approved, meaning they're past that stage. They do have draft plan conditions, but subdivision agreements haven't been registered. We have about 3,500 in that category, and then registered. So they've council or OLT has made a decision, draft plan conditions have been cleared, and they've got their subdivision, and so registered. So this would be where we start to see them built. We have about 1,500. So in total-ish, we have about 7,500. So that is above, if you calculate out 250 a year-ish is maybe 6,200. So we are above that, what we have currently. Now, that's a minimum set out by the province, and under the Planning Act, we can't just say, okay, we've met our target, so we can't accept more applications. What it does do is it gives us a little bit of flexibility and breathing room to maybe target where the growth is, which is some of the stuff that the official plan amendments we're gonna attempt to do, to say, you know what we can do? We can focus it, and maybe we can kind of try to put the brakes on other areas where we don't need the growth because we have enough. So that's really exciting stuff, which is going to be coming forward. As to your question about a list, what do those consist of? So policy planning has been working very hard for the last year with their growth tracker model. And it is nearing completion. It would be ready next month, but council's on recess. So they are going to be doing a presentation in September to council, which is exactly what you're talking about. Where are the applications? What's the stage? How many units are being proposed? And of course, that can change based on where they're at. But not only that, but it also can do some modeling. So if we get an application in, we can take a look at what that would do to the numbers, right? So it's very exciting. That's coming in September. I'm not sure what they can output from that, if we could maybe get a Friday file out over the month of August. But that information is coming, and a demonstration is going to be given to council so that you guys can see where this growth is happening, what it looks like, and what's projected.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Howes. That is the hot topic other than construction as to the houses being built. And I'm not sure if I can ask, let's take, for example, the apartment building on Arlington that was approved several years ago. And I've had many questions asked to me of, why is that not being built? So if we take something that's already approved, it's obviously in that number. Or does something jump over that, or is that just they've locked that number of units up now and that's all part of it?
So, to answer your question, so what happens is, and this happens a lot of times, draft plan approval or even registered, some subdivisions can be registered. Market drives when they're being constructed. So a lot of developers, they like to have a 75% or a 70% sale rate before they move ahead with building. So I would assume that it has something to do with that, but that would be as to when they're constructed, it's entirely controlled by the developer.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, so you're good with that, Councillor Howes? Okay, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to give a quick shout out to General Manager Phil Meat and his staff, Stacy and Kathy, and all the people that work at the Burford Community Center for hosting or organizing the watch parties for the Stanley Cup Finals between Edmonton and that other team. They make excellent popcorn at the arena, and that was good because it could be something to cry into. And I did make it out a couple nights, and one of the nice things to see was all the young kids, and they weren't watching as intensely as they should have been, but they're going to have memories of that when they're older, because I think back to when I was young and watching this Canada-USSR series, the summit back then. So a lot of good memories made, and again, just appreciate community staff for hosting them.
Thank you for that. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For those of you that don't know, last week the Special Olympics Provincial Summer Games were held, and it was a collaborative effort between the city, the county, and Six Nations, and it was very successful despite the heat. The heat really was a bit of a challenge for some of the competitors. The county hosted the softball tournament. And my compliment again is to Phil and his team, because I went there on Friday afternoon. The place was humming. There were, I think, 18 teams playing. It was very well organized. Our staff did a great job in providing the services to keep the thing moving despite, again, the heat. So thank you to Phil and the team for that. If I have a disappointment to report, it is that neither at the opening ceremony nor at the closing ceremony was there a representative of the county on the podium. And maybe Matt Bailey knows why, but it's a disappointment. On Thursday, Sherry Lynn was there. On Saturday at the closing, Mayor Davis was there. Somehow or other, the county got kind of excluded. And I feel that's unfortunate, given that we put a great deal of effort into it and making the games a success. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was actually doing some volunteering out there on Friday morning, and the thing that got me is there's some very competitive ball teams out there. And a couple comments I did hear from the fans was the fact that, wow, they're raking the diamonds between games. So that kudos to your staff, like you say. And I don't think they were expecting that, and it was just well run, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Okay, thank you for that. Mayor Bailey.
Yeah, I have a couple of things to say. First of all, I do understand your disappointment in not having me there. I was there. I think people saw me there. I was there until we paraded on, and my mother wasn't well, and my brother had a heart attack, so I had to leave. And but I also want to thank everyone for making the Lieutenant Governor's visit as great as it was. The only thing I forgot to do was to introduce my council at the event, which I felt really very badly about. I always introduce council no matter where I am, and I didn't. But I know that she came around and met everybody table by table, so I know that you were acknowledged, and she certainly knows who you are. But I didn't publicly do it, and I felt bad about it. But thank you to staff, and thank you to Pam and everyone who made that 2-day visit of the Lieutenant Governor. It was unforgettable. She enjoyed herself. And I would just like to thank everyone for making that so memorable. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay. And myself, for other business, I've had a couple calls regarding the status of the stairs by the High Level Bridge. I'm curious if I can get an update as to what's going on with those, how long they'll be closed permanently, what, if I could.
Through the chair, to the chair. If I was down there last week doing some work around the river and noticed that the damaged stairs have been removed and they're being poured. The one section that was closed will be open shortly, and then we will close the other side, and we're going to do some proactive repairs on that side while we're in the area working. So within the next couple of weeks, everything will be open back up.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And then Councillor Oakley, other business.
Thank you, Mr. Church. I just want to follow along the same thread as the mayor there in regards to the Lieutenant Governor visiting. I have a couple constituents that I speak to frequently who are curious about when we're doing various activities like hosting the Lieutenant Governor, going to conferences, so on and so forth. What's the direct benefit to the county and beyond the relationship building, which can come into benefit in future instances. But and the mayor can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe specifically out of this particular event, the Lieutenant Governor is going to be helping us and Adelaide Hunter Hoodless Homestead working to get that National Historic Site sort of on the federal budget line and using, both our influence, her influence, to get us there. So I think it's important to highlight when we're doing events like this and hosting elected officials. Though, yes, there's all of the niceties, we do the high tea, we do the various events. There are productive conversations that we have. There's things that come out of it that are of financial benefit to our residents. So I think that's important to highlight there, that, it's more than just, a get-together. There's lots of productive conversation that comes out of meeting with government officials, especially high-level government officials like the Lieutenant Governor. And I was also very thrilled to hear that she had a lovely time while she was here and is intending to come back. So hopefully, you know, we can have further conversation, both, politely with Lieutenant Governor, but also on business as well. So I just wanted to highlight that for any residents who may be concerned about when we're spending money hosting such people on what the actual gain is to the taxpayer.
Okay. Nobody else, other business? Mayor Bailey?
Just to respond to Lucas, she is going to meet us in Ottawa to lobby us to have a budget line for the homestead. She doesn't, she lives in Ottawa actually, but she's in Toronto, as you know. But she's going to meet us at the conference and set up a meeting. The hard part of getting any kind of funding for something like the homestead is getting the plaque. Sometimes the plaque can take up to 15 years to get in place. We've had the plaque for a very long time, since 1995. So the hard part's over. She says we've been overlooked. And she said that she'll put all those pieces together and she'll meet me at the conference, and we'll have the right ministers. And I'll take a couple of the councillors that are going to be at the conference with me, and we'll get the homestead hopefully all set up so that the future of the homestead isn't about selling chocolate bars and calendars. It can have real funding so that real programming and real education can be directed from that property.
Thank you for that. Councillor Miller.
Just thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to write on what Councillor Oakley said, and he's spot on when he says it's about relationship building, and as long as those other MPs are invited. And I sat at a table. I was fortunate enough to sit with the new or the MPP for the north of our riding, or north of our municipality, Brian Riddell. Never met the guy before in my life, and we just got along. We hit it off fabulously, but. He's new to me, so we have that relationship built now. It was a chance to meet the new MP, Dan Moyes. Never met him before, so yeah, I know the mayor there. He talked about the budget, and it was tough to get some money together. But we should almost schedule one of these after every election. You know, just have these guys out for some shindig or something like that, just so we can meet them. And it was a great opportunity at the homestead. Great opportunity, great day, great weather, great meal. So yeah, again, kudos to the mayor and everybody else that helped pull off, because it was fabulous.
Okay, thank you for that. Nothing else under other business. We are going to move in camera. Motion to move in camera. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Kyle, and we are going to move in camera for, there's 3 reports. RPT 0242-25, a license agreement for storm sewer easement. RPT 0280-25, property inquiry 809 Rest Acres Road. And RPT-0276-25, update on the natural gas expansion into Harley. Everybody's good on those. We've got a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 2 minutes, please.
to them. They said, I was kind of telling them about building my new house.
Okay, we are back in open session. We have one thing to ratify in open session, and that is the ratification of the license agreement with 100345837 Ontario Inc. to permit the retention of a storm sewer in the subject lands be approved. Councillor Kyle, Councillor Oakley, questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Seeing nothing else on the agenda, the next meeting for admin and ops is not till September, but the next council meeting is